Hello everyone, brilliant. Okay, so today we're going to be doing again another super simple recipe, very easy to do. This is one really for kids under supervision or teenagers who don't know the first thing about how to use a knife, how to saute, how to fry off onions, how to sweat them down, all that kind of jazz. If you're a complete beginner to this, this is the recipe for you. Everything is going to go into this pot. I'm going to bung it in the oven, and I'm going to do anything else apart from boil some pasta and dress it, okay? So I've got a knife out purely to show you that we're not going to use this. We're going to put this away straight away, and we're going to cook with just the ingredients that I have around me. So if you are cooking along, give me a high five or a wave, or let me know where you're cooking along from. And I would love to know. And whilst you do that, and whilst you get all your equipment set up, the first thing you want to do is switch on your oven to 210 degrees centigrade. It's hot because we want to try and get all the ingredients cooked up in this pot over here. Okay, so quick whiz around the ingredients. A stick of cinnamon, or if you don't have cinnamon, you could use a teaspoon of cinnamon. Doesn't really matter. A teaspoon of cinnamon will give that same flavor, but I like using the sticks because I think it really imparts a lot of the gorgeousness of whole cinnamon. And you can fish it out as well afterwards. It's a really good spice to use just generally. So we're going to leave that in whole. Got some dried oregano. You can use fresh as well if you want. Herbe de Provence would be great. Any sort of like sort of those Mediterranean vibe herbs. This is great. I always have some dried herbs in my cupboards. Capers. Everyone's got a bottle of capers that they haven't used because you used it once in the recipe and you don't know what to do with it, and it just lives in the fridge. So I'm going to teach you how to use capers and olives. Somebody messaged me, I think after the last live, and my boss is watching. Hi Parmi, how are you doing? My boss in A&E is watching. Somebody messaged me and said, I've got capers and I've got olives and I don't know how to use them. This is going to be a perfect recipe to use these because they're going to impart the balance of sweetness and saltiness and acidity. So this is going to bring the acidity. The sweetness is going to come from tomato puree, some tomatoes I've got here, baby tomatoes, not going to chop them up, and the chopped tomatoes. So if you're ready to cook along, get ready now. Everything's going in the pan. If you don't have chopped tomatoes, you've got whole tomatoes, whatever you've got, just use that. It's absolutely fine. If you don't have the canned ones, you can just use the fresh ones as well. Everything will break down. So like I've done before, everything is just going to go in here. I've got some fresh basil, and I've got a couple of cloves of garlic as well that I'm going to grate in. First things first, the tomatoes go in. Let me just grab some olive oil, bit of seasoning as well. Olive oil goes in, a good glug, about 2 tablespoons. This will serve about 2 people. Wouldn't mind cinnamon. Cinnamon goes in. We're going to use the stalks of the basil, okay? Don't throw the stalks away, all right? I know chefs don't like to use them, or they don't break down properly, whatever. We're going to use the stalks in there. You can pull them out afterwards, and we're going to use the leaves as garnish, okay? And every step of the way, think about the health benefits of everything that I'm putting in. Olives, fantastic flavor source, good quality fats. I try and use, we're going to use about 50 grams of these. I try and use the ones with the stones in, but for this recipe, the reason why I use the ones with stones is because they have a better flavor profile, loads of flavor in them. But the reason why I'm using them stoned here is because they'd be hard to eat and you'd always catch it, so we'll take them out. But if you've just got, if you're having it as like part of antipasti or whatever, just leave the stones in because there's a lot more flavor in those. We're going to use the capers. Now if you don't have capers, you don't have olives, you can still make this recipe work. The one thing I would say is to balance the sweetness of these beautiful tomatoes. They're going to break down, release all their strong antioxidants like lycopene. I would use some red wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar. Anything acidic that you have will work to balance these flavors. So this is what it's looking thus far. You've got tomatoes in here, your olives, your capers, a little bit of olive oil, good pinch of salt. You don't need to put too much in because we've got the saltiness coming from the olives. In goes our tomatoes. Now these are peeled plum tomatoes because I literally had nothing else to use. So peel peeled plum tomatoes go in. Oh, I need there you go, wooden spoon. We'll just break these down here and mix everything together. Beans, one thing I forgot to mention because I had it draining in the sink over here. Beans, any beans you have. I'm using ballotti beans. You can use cannellini, white, butter beans. If you're watching me early this week, you'll know how to make them from scratch yourself. Very, very easy to do, but I'm just using canned today for ease. So whacking this all together. Okay, all right, we've got these stalks in here. I'll put those over another time. Tomato puree, okay? In goes about 2 tablespoons tomato puree. All right, it's coming together, it's coming together. Garlic, now you always see me smashing the garlic and then chopping up and then putting it in. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. You can simply grate it, and grating it actually imparts a lot of the flavor, and it disperses it throughout the whole mixture as well. So you're going to get that beautiful hum of garlickiness all over the meal. I should have peeled these before, but it doesn't matter. We're doing it together. Is anyone cooking with me? Am I just doing it on my own? Oh, someone put their hand up, so I think I'm partially watching the cookery demonstration, but mostly just perfect for Talk to Rupi. Thank you very much. This is what happens when you can't read it. I hope you're cooking along anyway, Katie. All right, so we're just going to peel these, and we're going to grate it straight into our pan over here. And let me know how you're doing with the whole situation, how you're keeping your spirits up. Have you come across any examples of positivity or kindness or compassion? I've come across loads online. It's been pretty amazing, actually. I recorded a podcast today with a neurosurgeon who is based in Chicago, and we had a little discussion about how you can look after your backs. So she specializes in pituitary tumors and a few other more serious insults to the brain, like trauma. But she also does a lot with degenerative back disease, so lots of issues with disc herniations, and she's a huge fan of yoga and Pilates to make sure you strengthen your core muscles to try and help with not only recovery from surgery, but also prevention as well. Okay, so we've got our tomatoes, our garlic, we've got a bit of seasoning, we have our olives. I'm going to add a touch more olives to this because I like it quite olivey. Okay, let's put this in here. And don't forget, we have our cinnamon and we have our dried oregano. That's one thing I forgot, dried oregano. All right, all that goes together. Who's cooking with me? Oregano, olives. It smells like a pizzeria in here. It's going to taste amazing, I know it is. And if you're a young person or you don't know how to cook, or this is the first recipe that you're ever making, it's going to come out absolutely wonderful because your oven is doing all the work, and that's it, okay? So I've just done that. Put this to one side. Put the lid on, and that is the majority of it done. And so we can have a chat. In this goes over there. Okay, 210 degrees for about 25-30 minutes. It's all going to come to heat. It's going to bubble, it's going to mix together, it's going to ooze all those flavors together, they're all going to mingle around. And all we need to do is wait, and I'm going to make some pasta, and I'm going to garnish it with some nuts. I didn't put nuts on the ingredients list because it was a bit bougie, but whatever nuts you have, you've got hazelnuts, pine nuts, or pistachios, perfect. If you've got anything like that, it'd be wonderful. And you can also garnish it with a little bit of the capers as well, if you like the caper flavor. So, and then all you need to do now is just chill out. Really, that's it. That's it. It's cooking session done. We've got another 20 minutes or so until I need to start putting the boiling water on, but I'll keep that on for now. And we'll see if I can answer any of your questions. See if there's anyone on Instagram here. Oh wow, there's loads. Sorry, I've missed all these. I don't know why, it just doesn't pop up when I'm cooking and stuff. What am I making? It says there, no chop pot. It's a no chop pot. So just go through the ingredients again. Tomatoes, olives, capers, oregano dried, cinnamon, because that beautiful aromatic flavor, bit of seasoning, tomato puree, some olives, and some beans as well. And if you think about the formulation of Doctor's Kitchen recipes, we're trying to get at least 3 portions of fruit and vegetables per portion, per serving, 2 servings using 1 pan, that's it. And that's sort of the formula that we're going to be using in the Doctor's Kitchen thereafter. So if you guys are interested in that, then follow along. Please sign up for the newsletter and you'll get these kind of recipes every single week. We are trying to do that round the clock at the moment whilst I'm working in NHS and stuff, and I'm trying to juggle both recipe creating, finishing off some writing that I've got to do, and podcasting, all the rest of it. But we are still trying to get those recipes out, and I'm trying to figure out how we do that economically as well. What's going on in the oven? So I literally put everything in the pan and then whacked it in the oven, 210 degrees centigrade, that's it. And it will do all the cooking for you. I'm just going to pop some boiling water on into a pan to make the pasta. And that's it. I'll talk to you about the pasta in a second. Tell me about any positive stories that you guys have come across, how you guys are helping with the situation. Are you guys volunteering? Has anyone donated blood? If you have, I haven't managed to this year yet, which I feel really embarrassed about, but I would love to. I need to just find some time to make sure I do that. Because one of the things that we will 100% go down is blood donation. And as someone who writes prescriptions for blood all the time, it's kind of hypocritical for me to not donate myself. So it's something I need to make sure I make time for over the next couple of weeks. So we've got some boiling water. I'm not going to put the pasta in yet because it will just overcook. And we've got a good, I can't remember when I put it in, probably a good like 20 minutes to go yet. So let's see, putting on the recipe list sounds great. No worries. The recipe's on my Instagram and Facebook at the moment. So if you did want to do any of those, then please do. Gemma, thank you very much. Your recipes are wicked. I appreciate that. Will I put the ingredients up, please? Yeah, the ingredients are on the previous post. So if you just flick down, you'll be able to see what the ingredients are. So yeah, everything pairs well with wine. That's a very good point. And I have got some wine for this. I've got a Pinot Noir. I'm going all very Saturday Kitchen today. I've got a Pinot Noir with, what do we have? Notes of limestone, alkaline limestone soils to impart balance and minerality to the resulting wine. So whatever that means, I'm sure it'll go well with tomatoes that are cooked. So I'm going to get a glass. If anyone's drinking tonight, make sure you're drinking responsibly. I always have to say that as a doctor, you know, we do see the after effects both acutely and chronically of overconsumption of drinks and stuff. So you've got to make sure that you're doing it responsibly, particularly right now. There's nothing much else to do. The last thing we'd want is more people coming to A&E with alcohol-related issues. But I think like a half a glass of wine every other day is something that I actually recommend. So let's see. Fruit and veg delivery. So got the perfect larder supper. Brilliant. So in terms of swaps as well for this, there's so many different things that you could do to swap it. So I mentioned if you had passata, you could use passata. If you didn't like olives or you didn't like capers, like I said, red wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar would be perfect because it will balance that sweetness that you got coming from here. Cinnamon, again, if you didn't have cinnamon, the thing is you could be really experimental with this. You could use a teaspoon of fennel seeds. You could use a little bit of, even mustard seeds can give a little bit of earthiness. It doesn't all need to be Indian or Asian cuisine. You can use some mustard seeds in that respect. And fennel itself, actually just raw fennel would cook in the tomato sauce. And there's so many different ways in which you can cook this as well. So if you are of the sort of perspective that you'd rather cook it out and get a different flavor base and more caramelization, you could do some onions before and then add the tomato sauce and then add the olives and stuff for more flavor. So you could do it like that. It's no problem whatsoever. I'd have a Portuguese Vinho Verde. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't got into Portuguese wines yet. I really do need to get into Portuguese wines. I've heard a lot. I think I heard that from Gary Vee or something that they're, cheers, that they're meant to be good. This is the perfect meal to have with your family. You just pop it in and you don't really have to think about it, because then you can just enjoy a glass of wine. Like, I don't actually need to cook right now. I'm not doing anything. I'm just having a chat with you guys. So what I would say, oh, you're from Ukraine. Brilliant. That's amazing. Get into Galician wine. Yeah, that's another thing I need to do as well. How can I fix with diet? So I've talked about skin conditions in the past in terms of dietary changes, sugar and GI effect. I've actually talked about it on my Q&A on YouTube, so make sure you go check that out. Sugar is perhaps the only bit of evidence that we have. There is a little bit of evidence for dairy, and that might be because of the insulinotropic effects and also the GI effects as well. But other than that, there isn't much else in the way of diet. But anecdotally, I've had loads of patients that have come off dairy and come off high sugar foods, and they state to me that it's improvement. So those are anecdotes, so there's not evidence for me to say that everyone should be doing that, but certainly I have heard that in clinic a multitude of times for me to believe there might be something in it. But you also got to think about what things are you cutting out in terms of sources of dairy. So if you're not adequately replacing iodine in your diet, then you could be rendering yourself deficient, and that can have knock-on effects as well. Cool. I am, some people have just joined and they don't realize I'm cooking. I am cooking. I'm actually cooking right now. So there is a pot in the oven that's doing all the work for me. And I'm just boiling some water here as well. So I don't know if Instagram has the functionality or Facebook where you can actually go back, but there might be a way where you can watch it before and you'll see exactly what I made. Very, very simply, so easy to do. What is the best way to send you a question for Q&A? I retweeted you the other day and I found it engaging. So you can send questions to like either my Twitter, where I probably will end up answering that on the Q&A, because Twitter is a lot less noisy than the other social media platforms. And I will try, or my team will try and go through social media and we'll look at all the different questions that we get, and then they basically send me a whole long list, and then I sit here in front of a camera and just try and answer them as many as I can. But you can ask me a question right now, because I'm literally not doing much apart from allowing my oven to cook everything for me. What is it? What is the best way to send? Oh yeah, that's what I've wrote. It's any diet changes to make for an underactive thyroid. Underactive thyroid is a completely, like, I would never ever suggest anyone read anything online for an underactive thyroid and take that as gospel, because there's so many different things that can create an underactive thyroid, both dietary, both emotionally and psychologically, both medication-wise. Like, it's definitely nothing that you just want to like add an ingredient to. You really have to look at other elements of what might be going on that could be causing an underactive thyroid. There's so many different things. I am going to be doing a podcast on that soon, so we can actually dive into the topics. Talk about exactly what we mean by over and underactive thyroid. So yeah, loads of stuff there. But it would be completely reckless of me to say, oh yeah, underactive thyroid, all you need to do is this sort of thing. So as it would be for anything without context. Can I teach you how to sprout at home? Yeah, so what I did recently, the start of the week after work, I just grabbed a bag of raw beans. So we had chickpeas, we had azuki beans, and I just basically popped everything into a big bowl with water, allowed it to soak overnight, and then simmered it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that's it, it's cooked. And you have this, it balloons in size to the point where it's super, you get a lot more bang for your buck, basically, rather than buying a tin of something. So yeah, if you can get hold of some raw legumes, beans, chickpeas, pulses, I would definitely, because the flavor is incredible and it's such good value for money as well. You listened to my latest podcast today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Underactive thyroid is usually from soy products. No, not really. No, soy products are not have not been shown to create an underactive thyroid. Goitrogenic products like kale, if you eat it by the bucket load, may have that impact, but it'd be very, very unlikely that you'd be eating as much as you need. The phytoestrogenic compounds in soy that I've talked about again on the podcast in the past are actually very beneficial for general health. So yeah, I want to put that myth to bed. Let me see. Thanks, Zoe. Yeah, I know you need a little bit of wine to wind down. I think like a good amount, like a moderate amount. am I frustrated with the lack of flour? How am I getting on without it? It's a good point, Amy. I'll be honest, I don't really use that much flour in my cooking, apart from if I'm making a roux or to thicken up sauces. But I tell you what I have been using is corn flour. Corn flour is a really, it's actually quite accessible ingredient. I use it in my Creole dishes when I'm making like a thicker sauce. So a Creole dish is it's like a Louisiana style dish. You have like cumin, fennel, paprika, cayenne pepper, some gorgeous dried oregano. You make a sauce with that with some tomatoes as your base, and then you add a little bit of stock and then a little bit of corn flour or white flour and a little bit of butter, and you have this beautiful sauce. And corn flour actually is a really good replacement if you can't get hold of white flour. But I tend not to make my own breads or anything like that. I should probably get into that actually, considering. So yeah, let me see. Oh, there's Merck here. Merck, who is a psychiatrist who's probably inundated with requests right now. I think like one of the things that we forget about is the mental health of our population, particularly during testing times like this. They have it bad at the best of times with underfunding for mental health resources, but particularly right now we need to be making sure that we have the resources to look after people who are going through really troublesome times. And I think, you know, it was something that I talked about in my last podcast with Dr. Drew Ramsey. 5 out of 5 people have mental health, not 1 out of 5. It's everyone has mental health, and it's the degree to which you can actually tolerate the changes in our scenarios in our environment that actually leads you to have a clinical or subclinical affect. So I think it's really important. I usually make sourdough. Yeah, no, I'd love to make sourdough. My good friend of mine who makes bread, who's been on the podcast, Karen, she would probably be able to send you a few bags. So you probably reach out to her, the Happy Tummy Company. So check that out. Oh, thank you very much, Hilary. I really appreciate that. Can you watch this later? Yes, you can. You can absolutely watch this later. Don't worry if you can't watch right now. If you are cooking along, give me a thumbs up. I'd love to see what you got. And if you guys have any questions about what you need to, you know, annotate the recipe, if you are finding it hard to, like, you know, get all the ingredients that I set out there. So let me know if you do have any things that you want to swap out or whatever. So how do you know if you might be gluten intolerant? What are the symptoms? So gluten intolerance is really a tricky one to diagnose. The formal diagnosis is a really convoluted process, something that I've spoken about in my book, actually, my first book. So the process of diagnosing it is really, really awkward. It involves introducing gluten products and then taking them out. Oh, there's loads of people cooking. Thank you very much, Cardamom Mum. I hope it's smelling. Can you smell what's cooking? What the doctor's cooking? Yes, it smells gorgeous in here right now. And I've got my basil to look forward to and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm glad. What was I talking about? Yes, gluten intolerance. So yeah, it's a really tricky one to diagnose because it's a very convoluted process of how you actually go about diagnosing it. There isn't a test, no matter what you'll find on the internet. The testing kits that are sent to your house have been debunked a whole bunch of times. But yeah, because out of desperation, people will use them because they have no other way of like trying to figure out what's going on. The symptoms can be super non-specific. It can be bloating, it could be digestive discomfort after eating, it could be, you know, but all of these things could also be IBS, and intolerance to certain foods, other foods other than gluten. It could be anxiety related, and I'm hearing a lot about how people's digestive issues are really taking a turn for the worse right now too. So there's a whole bunch of other things that are probably going on, and there's definitely not a test. No, the internet died. No, the pasta's not on yet. Don't worry. Let me check on this. So this is probably been cooking for about 15 minutes, I want to say. When did I go on? Yeah, I would say it's probably been about 20 minutes. So I'll put the pasta on in about 2 or 3 minutes. This is cooking quite fast. Let me put that to one side. Yeah, I'll put it on in about 2 or 3 minutes, and then the pasta. Oh, I should probably tell you about what pasta I'm using. So I'm using Malfalda corta, which is a corn-based pasta, but this has also got quinoa in as well. I'm using it gluten-free because my girlfriend is gluten intolerant. So I have to be mindful of the amount of gluten that I have in my diet because of her. But yeah, so that's the pasta I'm making tonight because we're going to be having a meal together. And I'm going to dust a little bit of pistachio on top as well. So that'll be good. And yeah, but you haven't... COVID can lead to loss of... Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, anything that you have in terms of like whole grain pasta or whatever, that will work absolutely fine. Just read the packet. I always do it al dente because what we're going to do is we're going to cook the pasta and using a slotted spoon that I'll get at now. Oh no, where did the slotted spoon go? All right, I'm just going to use a big spoon by the looks of things. Yeah, I'll use a big spoon. Using a big spoon or a slotted spoon, whatever you have, we're going to lift the pasta out into the pot of food because you want a little bit of that, the pasta water, to give the silkiness to it as well. So yeah, so I missed something here. Would you have a nice recipe for a drink before bed? Oh yeah, that's a really good point actually. So drinking before bed, I would say, as in like apart from wine, I do not recommend alcohol right before bed because it actually disrupts the quality of your sleep. I would say something quite calming. Chamomile tea is very good. Valerian root tea is very good. And there are some concoctions with Bacopa monnieri, which is a herb that's been shown to have some soporific effects. That is the correct terminology. Somebody was asking me about anosmia. So anosmia is the medical term for loss of taste and smell. It is reported as a symptom amongst those who are suffering a mild or moderate condition of COVID-19. And yeah, that can be a symptom, and we've known about that for a couple of weeks now. So it's definitely one thing I would look out for. And if you have those symptoms, self-isolate. It's the same thing that we would say for people who have like sore throats and stuff. I'll look to Facebook and see. Thanks, Jane. I am keeping safe. I'm trying. Oh, thank you, Linda. I really appreciate that for all the work that we're doing. It's not just me. It's the cleaners. It's the garbage collectors, the people in the logistics supply chain who supply the fresh linen to the patients who are in the, there's so many people that need to be celebrated right now, and I'm really trying to shout about them as much as the frontline NHS staff as well. Okay, fine. Oh, let me. I'm going to check on that in a second, but I'm going to put some pasta in. So if you're cooking along, just make sure you've read your pasta instructions. We're going to pop this into our pot of boiling water. I haven't salted it because I can't be bothered to waste salt right now. I'm just going to put the pasta in. So I'm putting in about maybe about 120 grams or so. Put this in. A dash of extra virgin olive oil. That's quite important because it will prevent it from sticking together. And okay, I'll put a little bit of salt in. You need to season it a little bit. Pop this together. I'm going to pop the lid on. This only takes about 4 minutes or so. And so in the meantime, I'm going to check on what's in the oven as well. Goes in recycling. I mean, naturally what I would have done instead of chatting to you guys is I would have just cleaned down the kitchen at this point, and that way there's no cleaning up to do after doing this recipe apart from what's in your pasta pot here and the actual pot for the pasta and the ingredients. So literally like this would all be cleared down. I put the basil on and that's it. And this is the beauty of these kind of recipes, these 3-2-1 recipes. You're getting enough fruit and vegetables in, which is the best determinant of whether a meal is healthy or not. It's the number of the quantity of fruit and vegetables. You want 3 every mealtime, and I will show you how to make that a reality without even thinking about it. And you want to make sure that you're doing this, and you want to make sure everything is frictionless. So these kind of recipes, you don't want to be faffing around with a different pan, a different a way of seasoning, sauteing something at the same time. So yeah, you're just going to be careful of that. Is turmeric tea before bed okay? Yeah, I would say so. The only situation I do not recommend turmeric for is for those who have known gallstones, because we know that it is cholekinetic, which is a fancy way of saying it can get the gallbladder to contract, and thus if you've got gallstones in your gallbladder and you're getting your gallbladder to contract, and it can force the stone out and cause something called acute cholecystitis, which is not what you want. But that's the only time where I'd say you've got to be careful about turmeric and stuff. Love everything you do. Thank you very much. No worries, Amy. I hope that was helpful, and you can see it on the replay anyway. We'll put it on YouTube too. From Wales. Oh, brilliant. That's so nice. Do I have a recipe for hot chocolate that isn't loaded with sugar? Yes, I do actually. So 100% cocoa, whatever. Add that to hot water with cinnamon. And just blend that, and then add as much sugar as you feel that you need. So maple syrup is a good earthy sweetener. Nothing about the extra antioxidant effects. It's just sugar. But I would still use that because it's got a lovely earthiness to it. And a mate of mine actually gave me another recipe. It's with cacao nibs that you blend in a pestle and mortar. You add hot water to that, and it actually releases a lot of the essential oils and the flavonols in cacao, which is really, really good for you. Add a little bit of cinnamon and chili, and you make like a Mayan hot chocolate. It's really, really cool. Okay, cool. I don't want to overcook the pasta, so I'm going to bring out our pot. Okay, so this is, if you are cooking along, it's been in for about, I would say it's probably been in for about 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes. So let's check and make sure that we're not taking it out too soon. I should say I haven't actually cooked this recipe before, so it could go completely to pot. All right, it does smell nice. I'm using a beautiful Dembi pan as well that I got. Whew. Be really careful at this point actually. If you're doing this with kids and stuff, I wouldn't let them do this bit because it can be heavy. Oh wow, okay. This is looking great. If you're cooking along, you know exactly what I'm looking at right now. It looks amazing. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to put this to one side. I think I'm going to be able to bring this to you. Can you see this? Can you see what the doctor's made? Look at it. It's amazing. It smells delicious. Borlotti beans, black olives, capers. Smells wonderful. You've got the beautiful charring on the outside, which is exactly what we want. It's reduced just the right amount. There's hardly any water in it, but that's exactly why when we add the pasta to this, it's gonna give a beautiful luscious silkiness to it. And we're gonna take the pasta to the dish in exactly how they do in Italy and how I've been taught how to do it, because you want a little bit of the water as well. So I'm just gonna test this and make sure that the pasta is cooked. And your pasta might be different, so do it according to whenever you're ready. Use a little bit longer. Okay, use a little bit longer. In the meantime, I'm going to put the lid back on this actually because it will continue to sort of stew in its own juices. If you're cooking along, how did it look to you? Let me know. Am I adding some pasta water to it? I will be in a second. If anyone's cooking along, let me know. Not as good as the other recipe that you sent me. Oh my God, looks fab. Yada yada, looks great. If anyone is actually cooking along, have I ever been to India? Yeah, I've been to India many times. Any diet says a diet 20-year-old with UC. I would listen to the podcast I've done with Dr. Anna Desmond. It's really, really insightful. What is the dish? I don't know. It says there, no chop pot. Is it? If anyone's cooking along, just give me a thumbs up and let me know what it looked like for you. No one's writing anything. I'm pretty sure there's some people cooking along, but you probably got your hands full. So it's just one of my favorite dishes. It's one that I've just made up the other week. So. Yes, cooking along. Oh, brilliant. Babs Yoga. Looks great and cooking along. Brilliant. It's too early for dinner here in the US. Okay, no worries. You can watch it later. Yes, cooking added yesterday. Oh, brilliant. That's amazing. Looking awesome. Great. Smells great, right? Like you've got the cinnamon in there. You've got the beans. You've got that beautiful tomato. The hot oven is key here. So usually I don't cook under high heat because you don't want to destroy the benefits of the extra virgin olive oil that you're putting in. But because you're putting it in this big dish, you need the dish to actually get hot, and that's why you need to take it to a high temperature. But it's great. It's a really good sort of easy dish to do, and I know this pasta is going to be great with it too. Okay. All right. I think this pasta's done. Yeah. Yee! All right. Like I said, I would have cleaned down everything so you wouldn't have to mess around with like all this stuff on the outside. Okay, so the final thing, again, no chop. I haven't done any single chopping in this. No chopping whatsoever. No knife, nothing. It's just been cooking recipes for a couple of weeks now, and everyone has been delicious. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. Oh, you could put some, yeah, you could put leftover mushrooms on this. That'd be amazing. Absolutely. Okay, so we're just tearing these beautiful basil leaves. We're going to put it in now. I'm going to save some for right at the end as well. Okay. Plenty of basil on there. Move that around. All right, we'll turn this off. And this pasta, the proper way to do it is with a slotted spoon. I don't have a slotted spoon. So I'm just gonna lift the pasta very gently. Try not to get too much pasta water, but just enough that it's coated on the actual pasta itself. Okay. All right. Oh man, I mean, if you're cooking along, you know exactly what this smells like, and it smells gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Mix your pasta in to the delicious beans, the olives, capers. Even if you're not a fan of olives and capers, this way of cooking it completely changes it. The only added thing I would do is add some Parmesan to it if you're feeling frisky. But Parmesan, a little bit of more basil here. It's kind of like an arrabbiata, I guess, with the olives and everything. All right. And I'm going to add a little drizzle of olive oil on top, because you always need a little bit of drizzle of olive oil. And that is it, guys. I don't know what to call it. It's the no chop pot, but it's wonderful. This is what it looks like. It is unctuous, it smells delicious. You've got so many different flavors in there. You've got a little bit of charring the outside. You've got your wonderful fresh herbs. You have at least 2 portions of vegetables here, from the tomatoes, from the beans. If you had some extra spinach or leftover mushrooms, put that in there as well. If you have leftovers with this, it will keep well. The flavors will intensify overnight. If you did want to put a splash of wine in the cooking liquor before you put it in the oven, that would work as well, but I don't want to waste the wine. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've tried to answer as many questions as I can during this as well. I'm going to enjoy this now with my girlfriend. She's probably pretty hungry, and she's been listening to me yabber on about all this stuff. So yeah, let's see what else. Can I answer one more question? Looking fab, delicious, thank you. Okay, no worries. I'm sure an amazing cook. Thank you very much. And anyone can make this. You've seen I didn't use a single knife. I used a grater and my hands and a couple of pots, and that was it. So if this is a first recipe for your teenagers, your kids with supervision, then just go for it. Honestly, I can't tell you how easy this is to make. Oh, I've got some pistachios as well. I'll put some pistachios at the end. But yeah, that's about it for me today. If you want me to do more of these, let me know. Send me a message in the comments and stuff. And I will try and do more recipes to keep you guys positive and keep you guys healthy during this time, all right? Cool, all right. I will leave you guys to it. Have a wonderful evening with your families. Have a glass of wine on me, half, and I will see you another time. Thank you so much for watching this video. There's so many others for you to enjoy right here. Check out thedoctorskitchen.com, sign up to the newsletter where I give science-based recipes every single week. There's a podcast, there's 2 books, there's loads more content on social media, doctors_kitchen, and I hope to see you there.